Buckle up, everybody. On July the 15th, 2024, Mars, the planet that represents war, conflict, aggression, but also simply change, power, action, is moving into a conjunction with the planet Uranus. So the shocking, the unexpected, and the surprising. Think of the lightning bolts. Think of the tarot card, the Tower. These combinations of planets are difficult and often surprise us with some unexpected developments that we may not at first be particularly fond of. Remember, the sky is always working for you, even when we don't like what we see at first. One of the things about this is fixed star Algol. This is a star that is a malefic, very ominous star by the ancients. It was considered to be very portentous of negative outcomes. It has to do with the myth of Medusa, the decapitation of the head of the Medusa. We'll describe that mythology a little bit more, but we consider this a time in which someone losing their head, decapitation, can happen. Not literally, obviously. We're not living in a time in which that occurs very often, but rather metaphorically. What does it mean to lose one's head? You could be a head of state and lose your power. You could lose your mind or your temper. So we'll talk about how that might look for the world around the time of the 15th of July. But this is a part of a greater and more rare cycle in each of our lives, unless you were living through the 1930s and early 1940s, having Mars join with Uranus together in the sign of Taurus has not happened. But we did see the beginning of this cycle of the Mars-Taurus conjunctions back in January, the first one of 2021, and then August of 2022. And this July of 2024 on the 15th is the last such conjunction in the lifetime of most of us listening today, unless you are very, very young. It will come back in another 84 odd years. So let's get talking about how this looks, because it's rare, and this is the last of a cycle that began in 2021. We're going to cover the idea of how synodic cycles are to be understood in your life. It's not about what happens on July 15th, give or take a couple of days on either side. It's what is initiated on July the 15th that will finish up and complete a story of change in some part of your chart, in the Taurus whole sign house of your sky. Could be your marriage house, your home, your relatives, your family, your career, your children, your creative projects, your money. See, there's so many different meanings for each of the houses. This cycle that begins on July the 15th will not complete until the end of the cycle in July, indeed on July 4th of 2026. So I want you to know that as well as describing events that may occur collectively and individually around July 15th, it also is indicative of an unfoldment of change in your life that will take place in the Taurus part of your sky over the next 2 years. So shall we begin? Shall we talk a little bit about this event? I'm going to be showing you the sky. We're going to delineate all signs. I will talk very briefly about mundane or world astrology as it pertains to this cycle. But before we do all of that, my name is Lori Lothian. So if you're new here, welcome to my channel. And if you're one of my regulars, welcome back. If you want to check me out, I put lots of attention to the fixed stars, minor asteroids, because I'm a traditional astrologer. We're using astrology to time your best life and to look at it as a navigational tool. But one thing I'd say is understanding that my take on reality is we're in a simulation of some kind. I do not think this is based reality. And therefore, when you understand astrological cycles and rhythms, they are what I call rinse repeat. You can begin to make decisions in your life based on betting on the odds of this thing happening or not happening by using astrology as a navigational or wisdom tool. Try it out, see what you think. All right, so first of all, and subscribe, hit the bell for notification. Recording today on July the 4th. Happy birthday, America, 2024. I'm recording this now today for my Patreon community. You guys will get this a few days later, probably a week later. If you like early access ad-free content, jump aboard my Patreon community. It's quite affordable. $5 is the lowest tier, includes meetings with me, discounts on courses, and many other really great perks and content you won't get here. So first thing I would like to say is it was back in 1936, 1938, 1940, and 1942. Those are the 4 years that we saw Mars and Uranus co-joining together in Taurus. So I guess some of you may remember that. Some of you may be old enough to have been alive. I did a little bit of research. Of course, we had World War II ongoing during that time. Mars indeed is a god of war. We also know that Mars is in the sign of Taurus, which represents land. A part of that in the 1936 cycle. That included disturbances to land, including weather problems, including the drought and the Dust Bowl era in the Midwest of the United States, in the farming zones, or the what we call them prairies in Canada, but in the growing parts of the United States. So we had that disruption to land involving weather matters. But also the idea here is when I go 36, 38, 40, and 42, everything unfolds in the 2 years after, as well as around the times of the conjunctions. But one of the things I noted in the cycle to do with war and shock, there are a few things. United States during the March of 1942, aftermath of that conjunction on March 1st, did something shocking to most people at the time, or shocking in hindsight. They created detention camps for those who of ancestral origin, whether they were citizens of the US or not, of Japan. So they put Japanese people, American Japanese citizens, in detention camps. That was pretty shocking. We also saw such things as the Blitz, where the Germans, 60 odd days of bombing England without hesitating. And also Germany invaded Norway, Denmark, and began to invade France. So we saw sort of shocking evidence that this was 1940, by the way, that those invasions, that indeed Hitler was going to be like Alexander the Great, trying to conquer territory all around him. So those are just some examples of some of the kinds of shocking things that occurred back in the late 30s into 1944, right? 1942 to 1944. And that conjunction on March the 1st of 1942 did not close out its promise until, of course, approximately the next conjunction 2 years later, in the spring of 1944. Now, some of us are very prone to being influenced by Mars. Those are the Aries rising, the Capricorn risings, because he's your exaltation lord, and the Scorpio risings have a strong affinity and need to pay attention to what Mars is doing in the sky. But as well, if you have personal planets close to where this is happening, that of course includes your rising degree, your sun, your moon, and any other planet indeed close to the degree of this conjunction at 26 degrees of Taurus, you will be highly influenced by this. Now, I'm going to do a free webinar probably on Sunday, the 14th of July, where I'm going to help you understand how to look at your own natal chart and how to parse this challenging or intense energy in your life. And it will be based on your natal chart. I'm going to teach you how to look at your sky and see what other planets may be involved and how to also understand this more deeply. So if you want to do a free webinar with me, probably about an hour and a half on the 14th, in the description box below is the link to sign up. I love teaching classes. You'll get the replay of it. It'll be a slideshow, a teaching, and a Q&A. Now, that aside, who will be influenced by this in particular in our world story right now? Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Why? Joe Biden has his sun in Scorpio around 27 degrees. Yes, on the demon star Algol, losing one's head. So we know that both of these people will be impacted. Donald Trump also is in the unfortunate situation of having the Mars-Uranus conjunction together on his midheaven, also in a square to his natal Mars and to his ascendant, meaning this can impact his physical body and his personhood directly, as well as his career and reputation. Concerns around Mars stories with Uranus is it has involved historical episodes of violence, including acts of terrorism and shooters. That does give me concern for the safety and well-being of Donald Trump. By the way, I am not a fan of Trump nor Biden, and I am a Canadian. I have never voted in the United States, actually, or in my own country. So I'm just telling you the astrology. So you don't need to tell me about my preferences politically, because you're wrong. But I need to tell you about the sky of these two politicians as I record on July 4th. Both of them are in states of relative turmoil. Now, one of the things to mention about this is that if we want to think about the myth just for a minute of Medusa, and hopefully you'll bear with me while I tell a little bedtime story. So there was this beautiful woman, and she was Minerva was jealous of her. Minerva is the goddess of knowledge and wisdom, also known as Athena. And Minerva decided to basically turn her hair into writhing snakes. All right. And what about writhing snakes? It would turn men to stone. Amber Heard has her Venus, the goddess of beauty, conjunct Algol, the Medusa. So does Johnny Depp. They have Algol, they have two Venuses conjunct each other. We saw the crazy asshole weird stuff that went on in that trial for both of these people, in which the goddess of love has a toxic star involved in their love stories. And when these two people got together, it was a perfect storm. But I laughed when Amber Heard was in the trial, and I'm not pro Amber or pro Johnny, she wore her hair one time in this twisty thing with these big streaks, and many people commented without knowing that Algol was a part of her Venus beauty story. They commented that she looked like the Medusa. So that's how crazy astrology can be sometimes. That said, don't forget, Medusa, before her hair turns to snakes, was a beautiful woman, and Amber Heard is a beautiful woman. Now, Algol in Arabic means it means the demon star. And also it's connected to alcohol and also to the word ghoul. You know what a ghoul is, right? It's like a thing that goes around the corpses and the dead, and it's like spooky and it's very Halloween. So we have a ghoulish quality to the idea of the star. We have corpses and rotting corpses in the mythology. We have the Medusa. So right away you see it's not positive in any general sense. However, in medieval astrology, they actually use the star for wealth generation, but it also quite often came at a cost or an unexpected downdraft. And also, I do believe the New York Stock Exchange, or the New York Stock Exchange Composite Index, has its sun on Algol. And knowing that is probably because the founders of that index did have a little astrological knowledge that there is an intensity around wealth that comes with this star. Now, I want to read something to you that comes from a book that I really enjoy, Vivian Robson. I have a bunch of books on the fixed stars. And this particular quote kind of says it all. She says about this star, because I just want to give you the gist. She says about it, it causes misfortune, violence, decapitation, hanging, electrocution, mob violence, gives a dogged and violent nature that causes death to the native or others. It is the most evil star in the heavens. And the book is The Fixed Stars and Constellations in Astrology by Vivian Robson. I think it's an old-timey book, but I think you can still get it online. That aside, it's not always that way, because, breakthrough change, Mars is change, breakthroughs are Uranus. Surprising actions and events don't always have to be negative. That kind of Medusa myth star is most likely applying to world events like the decapitation of world leaders, meaning the decap, head of state, cut off your head. So what? Macron, right? He's probably not going to get a majority government in 2027. I do not think he'll win the re-election. So in France, we'll look at like Marine Le Pen as coming into power, perhaps as the far right is taking a hold in France. So we can see that as a possibility of an example of what may happen between this conjunction and add 2 years. Right? And that will take us all the way to July of 2026. I think the next formal election, though, in France is 2027, but Macron will lose power over the government in the sense that he won't have a majority, or he won't have enough seats to be making decisions without having to bargain with, like, say, the far right. That's potentially true. That election process is still unfolding. But also, when you think of the midheaven, when you think of the midheaven of Donald Trump at 24 degrees and this conjunction at 26, it can indicate something about him being in his place of his midheaven power and reputation and achievement being decapitated. I do not like the square to Mars. I think his Mars is at 26 degrees and his ascendant is at 29 on Regulus, the star of power, the king, little king, born to rule, power, fame, and glory, but always with a caveat. The footnote on Regulus, the star on Donald Trump's midheaven, comes at the cost of hubris and pride that leads to a fall. We've already seen the fall, I think, but there could be more. So again, violence physically against Donald Trump is a danger around the 15th of July, maybe give 2 or 3 weeks on either side. And then finally, Joe Biden's sun in Scorpio is opposite this particular Algol star, and opposite where the activation of it will be. And it's in his 6th house of health challenges and sickness, and also the job he does, where the star and the conjunction happens and activates his sun in his 12th house, which is the house of hospitals and insane asylums and mental health places and isolation. So what will happen? We shall see, but both leaders are in danger from difficult outcomes from this conjunction, not only around the 15th of July, but ostensibly until the first square, the opening square, when Mars moves into the sign of Leo and will square the Taurus part of the chart where Uranus will still be. And I did write the date of that square down, which is June the 15th of 2025. So this is reverbing most obviously, this conjunction, until then at the very least. This synodic cycle does close out, of course, as I mentioned, and it will be over on July 4th of 2026. But for those of you astrology geeks, get a pen and paper. And I'm going to give you the critical turning points that you may experience in your life and the world may experience at large, relative to the events that are surrounding the July 15th, maybe 3 days before and maybe 4 or 5 days after. And many of you know that the Republican National Convention is happening on I think the 14th to the 17th, around the same time as the star Algol holds space for this conjunction of Mars and Uranus. The dates to look at then are June 15th of 2025, when we see Mars in Leo squaring Uranus in Taurus. Then next, November the 25th, 2025, when Mars will oppose Uranus. Mars will be in Sagittarius, and Uranus will temporarily have dipped into the early degrees of Gemini. And then on July 4th, 2026, we close it out with Mars and Uranus conjoined in Gemini. Because you see, Uranus is headed into the sign of Gemini. That's his ultimate destination, where he will be by April of 2026. Okay. But he sort of dips between July of 2025 and November of 2025. He dips into Gemini for a short time, backtracks into Taurus, and then by April of 26, full on, we've got 7 years of Mars, Uranus, the Great Awakener in Gemini. Get ready for aliens, inventions, and scientific achievements that are going to bedazzle us all. Okay, what else? I'm going to show you the picture of this. I just spit. I'm going to show you the picture of the sky, but I also want you to go back to the following dates collectively in our own lives as well. Go back to January 20th of 2021. What was happening? Because that was when Mars and Uranus co-joined at 6 degrees of Taurus. If you are anyone with a Taurus 6-degree placement, you really felt it, especially sun, moon, and rising, as well as angular signs, angular to Taurus, right, which is the Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius axis. If you had planets in the first 10 degrees of the sign of those Taurus or those signs, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, you were pretty rattled by what happened, perhaps by change events that were initiated January 20th of 2021. And that lasted. Those changes kept unfolding until August 1st of 22, when the next conjunction happened. I'm going to use the world and me as a demonstration. What happened to the world? Inauguration day for Joe Biden. What was a shock? Trump didn't show up. That could have been it, because, by the way, that's the first time in history ever that a sitting president did not show up. I mean, the losing president at the inauguration of the next president. So that was a breach of protocol that kind of shocked and surprised many different people. What else was going on at the same time? I wrote these things down, so let me look for my notes. I was trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. Congress impeached Donald Trump again in January of 2021. And don't forget, it doesn't have to be the day of the event. It could be anything in the 2 or 3 weeks that follow, up to like months that follow. But they impeached Trump a second time, and Nancy Pelosi said because he is a clear and present danger. Those are shocking or unusual events that were happening at the time. And the United States began to put COVID travel restrictions into place. So Mars can rule travel and adventure, and Uranus is surprising new events. In August of 2022, though, these two came together again. And that was August the 1st. And what was going on at that time was Biden signed his second abortion order to executive order to help to mitigate against restrictions to abortion. So it was like, states are starting to rattle out their own rules, and he's trying to create some executive order at a federal level. And so that was Biden's response. And why that matters, why that's a thing. is because Mars rules miscarriages and abortions, and Uranus is some surprising or news story that may surprise people. So, as executive order, second one passed to protect the right to women's right to choose, I suppose. I do not have a stance on this. And then the FBI were searching Mar-a-Lago for documents that may have been illegally held, secret documents, files by Donald Trump. And there was a lot of hoopla about that. Now, you'll notice that Biden and Trump are both doing things here because they're both intensely activated, but not as intense as this version, because each of these conjunctions happened opposite Biden's sun. Okay, so he was inaugurated on that one, right? And then he was doing executive orders about abortion, but also on Donald Trump's midheaven placement, not on the midheaven, but in the same whole sign house. So you can see that they both do things that are notable during these conjunctions or involved in the news cycle. Finally, Oakland, California high school, 12-year-old shooter. That would have been back in the August of 2022, add a couple of weeks narrative. So we keep seeing these kinds of themes happen. Again, I'll reiterate: extreme weather, terrorist events, shooting events, the word that starts with A that means you intend to cause harm to someone and cause them to no longer be alive. If I use the A word that I'm talking about, it will give me a flag on the YouTube here. So those words I can't use, but hopefully you know what I mean. Physical harm coming to Donald Trump through malintent. How does that sound? There was a news story today on July the 4th that some columnists had called out for Biden's team to MURDER TRUMP. I'm like, really? Could that kind of stuff really come out? Holy man, I think that you could have a lawsuit against that person because they're a very popular columnist and they may be British. I mean, you may incite people to action because there's something that is collectively called the Trump derangement syndrome. It's as if a lot of the blues, the Democrats consider him to be like the next Hitler or a walking demon of some sort. I mean, I'm not saying he's great. I think he is probably a very wounded being and perhaps is, if not likely a narcissist. But also then Donald Trump's got problems, and so does Biden, who seems to be, according to the consensus, 71% of Americans do not think he is currently fit after that debate. That's a poll. That's not me. To be running for the presidency, because the observation by many, and shocked observation, was that he seemed to be in a cognitive decline that was alarming. And so I'm not going to go much more into that, but both candidates seem to be in harm's way from the decapitating star of the Medusa. Medusa was a female. She was beautiful, a goddess sideswiped her, turned her hair to snakes that were writhing, that caused men to turn to stone. And then Perseus, the hero, slayed her and cut her head off. Well, guess what? This poor woman was also a rape victim. I hate to say it. I shouldn't say that word. See, that word is bad on YouTube. But you know what I mean? A victim of violence, a sexual violence victim. By Neptune, I believe it was Neptune. And you see what I'm saying? It's like the disqualified feminine, and suddenly she becomes monsterfied because she was attacked by a god, Neptune. So there's a lot going on with that story that has to do with the feminine impulse and the patriarchal problems around it. I did a video on the Cancer new moon as a pivotal point at the bending of the nodes of fate. Go watch it. I do talk about women rising to power in many videos, mostly coming off my solstice, my vernal equinox, spring Aries ingress video. But the point is, you'll see women coming to power more and more and more. It's astrological. And this new moon conjunct Venus, cardinal sign, is all about leadership. On the 6-star series on the sun equals leadership of the United States natal chart, sun is important. Now, also, the United States Sibly chart is very hobbled by this particular Uranus storyline as well. And that's because it'll form a square to Mercury in Leo in the 9th house of the United States Declaration of Independence chart. And 9th house matters are tricky stories because they can do with justice and legal stories that are shocking and surprising or unexpected. We can go with those words if you like. But also there's another element, and that is that with the Mars-Uranus conjunction in the 6th house of of this chart of the United States, which is not an easy placement. The sixth house is a difficult house, the gates of Hades, squaring Mercury in the ninth house, yet trining the midheaven of the United States of America in Virgo. It can indicate a change, a sudden shocking change of leadership or rulership of the ruling party in the United States. But the square to Mercury is just fascinating to me because not only does it involve legal matters, courts, and foreign places, but it's the house of the hand of the king or the sidekick to the king. And I do think that a lot of what we're going to see is a really shocking new development regarding vice presidents and presidents. Like we may have the first female president with a male vice president. I'm not kidding. Just wait and see. And I don't know how that will happen. Now let's get going and do your sign. What we just covered, and I should have prefaced that, is what we call mundane or world astrology relative to events in the sky. For you, as we go forward, I would like you to really focus your attention on going back in your memory to the dates of August 21st of 2022. And before that, the 20th of January 2021, because those dates and the time between them, okay, so we're going August 1st of 21 to this July, and before that, January 21st of 2020 to August 1st of 22, those cycles, okay, those 2-year cycles are indicating Mars change of action, decisions, and direction. Uranus, shocking, surprising. I want you to understand that my view of astrology is a malefics, for instance, Mars is a malefic or difficult planet, are not causing harm. Saturn is also a difficult planet, but it's not causing harm. It's literally like those crucial turning point actions. Saturn often brings oppositional energy like tug of war. We're being opposed by a force. We have to struggle against it. Squares bring actions and decisions that require change. Mars is the nature of decision making, decisive, to cut in two this way or that way. And reality needs that momentum. A good fiction story is driven by conflict, Mars, right? Or oppositional energies of characters opposing your desires in fiction, Saturn. So our narratives in our life, in our fictional story of me, and our character of me, are driven forward by momentous shifts caused by Mars and Uranus. I mean, Mars and Saturn. And so in this case, Mars says, this will propel you to make decisions, take actions, and go in new directions that may surprise you. So again, decisions, actions, and new directions that may surprise you. Yes, Algol is there, but unless you have a planet sitting on Algol within 3 degrees of either side, so let's say, or 2 degrees of either side, actually for the star itself. So do you have any planets sitting, in that zone of Algol? And I think Algol at this time, I'll put it in the chart, maybe at 27 degrees of Taurus in our current sky. But when you were born, it could be every 70 years, the star changes by a degree. But if you have planets up there near 26, 27 Taurus, 25, 26, 27 of Taurus, then it will be more like decapitation in the sense that it can shock you. You could lose your head. There could be some catalytic event, So we'll talk about that in the webinar, all right? But if you don't have planets there itself, the Medusa problem isn't yours. It's collective, right? It's not your story. So let's go ahead and let's go through the story. I want to say one thing about me. I'm an Aquarius rising. So I'm going to show you this guy, and I'm just going to use me as an example. No, I am not a narcissist that I know of. I just think teaching examples are useful before we do the all signs. So I'm an Aquarius rising. So it might be helpful just to cue to Aquarius so you can see me. And anyone else who's Aquarius rising, sun, moon, and all that, listen ahead. By the way, the moon represents your home, your body, your mother, your mind, how you see it and view your life. The sun represents your father figures, like a father, things to do with your career and purpose and your deeper essence. You may call that your soul or your eternal spirit. And you may consider that the rising sign is the character you're playing in the game of life, the matrix simulation avatar. It is a character. I'm a character of a rising Aquarius. I'm detached. I'm scientific. I'm cool-headed. I like to help humanity, pour the water on them that heals. I'm all about that Aquarian impulse. I'm Spock in Star Trek, right? A Leo rising is Captain Kirk. Cancer rising would be McCoy, archetypes, characters. So as Aquarius rising on the 21st of January, 2021, add to August of 2022, this conjunction happened in the part of my sky that represents my nest, my home, where I live. Unbeknownst to me, because I was happily nested in an apartment I loved in Montreal, Canada, I was uprooted from that apartment due to a sticker shock, a shock that happened several months later. From the January of 2021 conjunction, it was March of 2021 that I filed taxes for the first time in the province of Quebec. And I had moved there from Vancouver, Canada, and realized I'd moved to the province with the highest tax bracket in Canada. And I was shocked. And I made a decision, Mars, decide, choose this, where, to move again. And by July of 21, I'd moved back to Vancouver. So you see what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, my sky was falling. Mars gave me a sticker shock on a price tag on my taxes, and I moved. The next time it happened to me, I was 2022, month of August 1st. I was happily in a little pied-à-terre apartment in Vancouver by a girlfriend of mine who was renting it to me because she didn't need it. She had a big house in another province. And she had promised me I'd have all the way through to next April. So we're talking about, several months, August, April, to continue to rent her place before she might even conceivably want it back. And then this happened in August, this conjunction. And by September, she was telling me that she had to change her mind. She'd rented her own big house out in another province, thought she'd travel, and certain complications occurred, and she had nowhere else to live, and she needed her apartment back. Do you see what I mean? And I'm like, what? Shock. Lori changes her home again. But I got a great new home, and the one I really love right now. However, I'm aware that this conjunction is happening in the house of home, property, and real estate yet again, and I can probably expect an unexpected reason for me to choose or act or decide to move. Now, that is a demonstration to make you less afraid of this conjunction of Mars and Uranus in the sky. So let's start then with the Aries sun, moon, and rising, and I want you to go back and compare notes to prior dates. Now, before I do, if you're listening this long or if you're in the live premiere, would you mind hitting the like button? And I did forget to share what's going on for me in my promotions. If you missed buying my 2024 All Signs bundle at the early discount prices that I had last October, which is $49 and $59, and then it has been available since January at $77. That bundle is now available as a summer sale for $33. And that's because you can listen to 12 90-minute videos, and you can listen for your sun, your moon, your rising, your family, your friends, and your children. And there's still 6 months left in the year. If you just want to buy your a la carte video, go for it. It's in the description box below. It is only $14 and it used to be $25. And you can just buy the video for one of those placements, your sun sign, your rising sign, or your moon sign. And that's my every year's July summer sale that gives you still 6 months of content about the year ahead in those 90-minute videos. Plus, you can look back and see how true or not true what was going on in the last 6 months. Did it make any sense in hindsight? So check that out. Now, let's get rolling. We're starting with Aries sun, moon, and of course, rising. Okay, we're ready to start. And we're doing Aries first, as we usually do, because it helps people know where we are when they come into the room during the live premiere, where I attend all of my videos that I can anyway, live, like watching the replay with you guys. So if you like that kind of stuff where I take your questions in the live, get to know you, and I watch the premiere with you on the chat, definitely subscribe. And I said this to a few people already on a couple other videos. YouTube did a subs dump in June. I called to figure out what was happening. They told me they were scrubbing bots out. Well, good luck for that. I've had so many of you tell me that you were unsubscribed and you've been long-term subscribers. If that has happened to you, I'm so sorry, but double check that you're still subscribed, because unfortunately, many of you, I'd say about 3,000 or 4,000 people, were dumped off my subscriptions in June. So that could be you. All right, starting off with Aries, sun, moon, and rising sign. Okay, so I have a sun and moon here, so I can sort of relate. But, the idea is that there is an energy going on with this particular conjunction in the sign of Taurus that is about our finances. And it's about making a change, right? A pivotal change, a decision, taking new actions. Now, I don't like it on Algol. I don't like it with the sense of sort of calamitous energy. So be very careful, especially around July 15th, not to make impulsive, rash decisions, Mars, on financial matters. Please be cautious on that day. And the jaw, teeth, face is the second house. Be cautious around July 15th, not to injure your face. And finally, things you ingest and put in your mouth are second house matters. I don't like that for eating or drinking anything unsafe. And now, of course, you don't know it's unsafe to actually eat or drink it, right? But be careful. So those are days to be awfully careful around accidents from food ingestion, substances, radical bad decisions and actions you could make around your finances that you'll later on regret. And because this Mars-Uranus conjunction is in a money and savings house, and sometimes your possessions. I possess a car. My car is parked. It is parked safely, I hope, on a street. But because I'm an Aries, I will tell you a story. It was after the 2021 January conjunction of Mars and Uranus that within 2 months or 3 months, I think it was March, somebody smashed into and totaled my parked car in Montreal. So this is a possession. I own a car. Mars does rule vehicles that move and you can drive, including planes and trains. So again, with this kind of conjunction at the world at large, we have a plane accident, an air accident for sure. But in your own chart, be careful for something you possess and some accidents, right? That includes cars, that includes your furniture, but that includes anything that you can possess, including your savings and your money that you stashed away somewhere. So Mars rules thievery. Do not put possessions of great value, including money, in an unsafe place, please. With the moon in her detriment in the 8th house, that could also indicate a loss of money. See the moon in Scorpio across the way. A loss of money on the 15th, 16th of July connected to investments in the markets. Be careful with that as well. I realize this skipped me ahead by a day. Let's go back one more day, but it's still the same moon in the same house. So be careful around the 15th and 16th around stock investments. Now, I'm not your stock advisor. Please don't take advice from me, but certainly don't do anything risky in that kind of area of your life. Finally, changes of direction and new actions that are in accordance with it that may have surprised you or will surprise you in the way you create financial resourcefulness for yourself. If I was to use me as an example, just so I can teach something here, I would say that the January 21 thing that activated back then, it involved me. What did I do financially that was different? I'm just trying to remember. That was the first time I taught Sky Reader. It was in May, actually. A few months later, I created the course after the conjunction. My Sky Reader course is a really great bestseller for me. And it's the first time I ever decided to create a 6-week astrology class to give people the tools to be their own astrologer and time their best life. So it was a surprise, but Uranus's ideas or aha moments. And so that's an example. It was quite positive for me. And then the next piece of Sky story would have been 2022 August. And what kind of Aries energy did I encounter in my second house of possessions and earnings that surprised me and that took me in a new financial direction, for example. And that was interesting. That was the first time. It actually began in July and August of August of 2022 that my YouTube channel began to really take off, and my subscriptions started to really go up like crazy. But also with it, my ad revenue. So for me, I'm giving you a reassuring story that as somebody who is an Aries Sun, Moon, or Rising, it may not be negative. It can be very much about positive changes that surprise you or decisions you make that bring new things to you financially that are quite, see, in the ancient tradition too, or not ancient, but in my tradition, Uranus in the second house is the rags to riches placement. When I do my money code astrology, I talk about that. It's a course I taught. People who are born with Uranus here will go up and down like a yo-yo, rags to riches, riches to rags, but they have the potential to really boost their finances. So keep that in mind. Lastly, because you are a Mars ruled individual, this is a must pay attention to aspect pattern. There's simply no way you can ignore it. And it's worth noting that as Mars moves out of this orb of connection to the planet Uranus, he's the first major connection he makes with any planetary body is going to be with Neptune. Okay, now that's not a traditional planet. I understand that, but it's still important. And so as he moves away from the sign, he moves away from the sign from the conjunction to Uranus, he begins to form a sextile to Neptune. And Neptune is at the anaretic intense degree and pulling back the tide. There is almost a flavor embedded within this next 2 years that you will be rolling back the fog of illusion and delusion and using it, the Mars energy, in a surprisingly lucrative and positive way to do the following. To roll back addiction, self-undoing, and bad patterns and habits that get in the way of your facial beauty, your food style, and your financial wellness. To roll back some earnings from foreign lands, foreign shores, and far off places using YouTube, Instagram Reels, or TikTok, because those are videography platforms. Also, in terms of screenplays, writing fiction, imaginal world endeavors, those are also very lucrative financially for you as you innovate, are very original, Uranus, and you make changes in income in relationship to a Neptune in a money house. Yes, not only is it a spiritual awakening story that some of you may have as well, but also this idea that Neptune is in the house of income you can create from far off foreign shores and borderless income, perhaps because you're digital in your revenue sources, or because you move to another country, or you work with an international company, that kind of thing. So it can be changes in that regard as well. But don't forget, Neptune is retrograde at the time of this conjunction. So it's about lifting the fog of some area of confusion or delusion in your 12th house. Enlightenment, moksha, letting go of addictions, releasing them, bad habits and patterns, self-undoing, releasing food styles that don't work for you, but releasing as well, or allowing for new kinds of revenue that are realistic, Saturn, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and your dreams can come true. But it has to do with Neptune themes. And I outlined those, right? And photography, filmography, music, video, imagination, videography platforms, etc., on YouTube and all of that. Okay. All right. Anything else I want to say for you guys about it? Don't never expect it to happen all at once, right? This is a story that goes for a couple of years. And therefore, you must note that it's not a one-off narrative. Taurus, sun, moon, and rising sign. I'm going to say, this is happening in the house of you. Now, this is where I don't want you to panic. I want everyone to take a deep breath. Come take my free webinar on July the 14th, where we'll dive into this in more depth, giving you more personal ways to handle this in your chart. That class will be for advanced beginner to intermediate astrology people. If you're coming in cold and you don't know what a planet is and you never cast your chart before, you might be overwhelmed. So what I would say is, if you have I'm going to put the star Algol in there. I should have done that. That will help us see the star, and you can have your eyeballs on it. I apologize. I meant to have it in there. Stars. And let's add Algol, A-L-G. Sorry, guys. It's one word. All right. Algol. There we go. Algol, add. There we are. So as you can see, there's Algol at 26 degrees and 30 minutes of the sign of Taurus. This means that if you have planets within about a couple of degrees of that, so let's just make it simple, 24 degrees, like Donald Trump's midheaven, all right, to 28 degrees of Taurus, your sun, moon, or rising sign especially. This is a big deal for you. So number one, it does indicate radical change. And it's your ascendant. It can indicate every area of your life, your career, your marriage, your home, your finances, everything. Everything's up for grabs. You personally may feel like you lose your head, right? Because you're going to lose your head over something. Or you might have a flip out, and be careful because of that. On the other hand, be cautious for your physical well-being if you have planetary sun, moon, or rising Taurus placements, moon especially, rising especially. If your sun is here, it is about career or your dad, and moon is about your mom as well. So it's not just about you, but understand that there is something very intimate to your sun, moon, and rising. If it is 24 to 28 degrees of Taurus, it's a once in a lifetime event, and it's got great weight for you. And therefore, it is worth being, first of all, extra diligent for you on the days of the conjunction. Let's give you a nice little window of the 13th to the 18th. Lay low. Don't do parachuting, skydiving, bungee jumping. Don't go for your first ayahuasca journey or take some kind of psychedelic. I would kind of hold back on those dates, okay? Perhaps. In the meantime, the idea is that you're having a radical change of awareness, right? Ideas, the way you want to approach something. And if you want to listen back for, the other dates, remember in the beginning, I told you that this was the 2021, January 20th and August 1st, 2022. And each of those incited this energy within you, right? And for you Tauruses listening who want to know the degrees again, it was at 6 degrees of Taurus in 2021, and it was at 13 degrees of Taurus in 2022. And now it is here at 26 degrees of Taurus. So we've all had a turn, right, guys? You've all had a turn, a radical reinvention and shift. My daughter has her son. I'll use an example from a family member. My daughter has her Taurus sun around 10 degrees, 9 degrees, 10 degrees of Taurus, indicating that the one on January 20th, 2021 had a huge impact on her son, which she would indicate as purpose career matters, essentially. And indeed, it led to a decision that she made in the wake of that to change schools and continue her education in another province, higher education, and another school. So that is exactly how that played out. It was a surprise to all of us, and that's what happened. But she made the decision from the sun energy of her Taurus sun. So look back, look forward. This one's extremely intense. The trine, the sextile to Neptune, who's at retrograde shortly, like a day or two after this conjunction, Mars will be in that trine sextile to Neptune. Let me double check the exact. I want to see exactly when that sextile forms. I think it's the third week of July, kind of forming after the conjunction around July 20th. Yes. So around July the 20th, that aftermath of the energy, but it's still playing out for 2 years, can indicate that you are going to, Taurus, be seeing kind of another layer or element to this, which has to do with where you have Neptune in the house of friends. Now, certainly Neptune up here can be about friends that are spiritual, but it can also be friends that are addicts or mentally health challenged. It also can be to do with your visions, goals, and dreams for your career gains. And you may be reassessing that because the fog is rolling back off after the direct motion and the shore, the tide is coming out and you're seeing what's left on the shore. And you're being very much more able with Saturn to be realistic about those friendship circles and groups of belonging, and about things to do with perhaps, your 12th house is wedged between two malefics. And therefore, there's a hyper focus on the word addiction, self-undoing, and self-sabotage in the sense of that being kind of like in the play, right? Wedged between the malefics and wedged between Mars and Neptune. So you might be looking at conditions of social groups and belonging that don't work for you, that aren't good for you, as well as changes in your visions and goals for your career and the way you earn income. Not to worry too much. Taurus, Pluto is going to make you wealthy in the next 20 years and give you great transformative power in your 10th house of career. And with Jupiter saving the day in your house of earnings and possessions anyway, all will be well on that front. So keep that in mind. All right. Just a note that friends who are like an elder sibling, who want to help you, look after the little sibling, or literally your elder sibling is in the 11th house. And so there may be a strong positive connection in a good new way to an elder sibling as a result of this energy of change and surprise that Mars is initiating here. And, technically with Mars conjunct Uranus, and there'll be more of this in the webinar, Mars does rule your 7th house of significant long-term committed love stories. And in that sense, you may very well be hyper-focused on your significant marriage and love stories. Be careful. With a moon in the condition of her fall, and that Mars Uranus shock and awe in your house, this can indicate an abrupt ending to an existing relationship for catalytic and unexpected surprising reasons. Be very careful around the 15th of July, maybe 3 days before and 5 days after. I'm still in the days. Oops. Now let's talk about Geminis. So Sun, Moon, and Rising Gemini. The energy of this conjunction that happened in 2021, January, January 2021, and August 1st, 2022, is in your 12th house. And this time with Algol, it's much more intense. Your 12th house can be subtle. It has to do with that spiritual illumination, that liberation, the moksha of enlightenment. So some of you may be experiencing this much more as an internal process, a kind of off with their heads can be in the non-duality, a very strong image of losing your mind, your head, your thinking self that is detached. Once it's cut off, you're no longer locked in the character that has all the worries and the thoughts. In a way, this can be very useful for any of you Geminis that want to lose your head in order to gain your soul. And therefore, this can indicate a deepening of spiritual awareness and liberation. However, there are other things that connect to the 12th house that are much less lofty. One of them is hospitals. And therefore, somebody you know may be shockingly suddenly in a hospital. I don't want to worry you, but this is what is happening. Mars is indicating a potential injury or shocking incident that puts someone close to you in a prison or a hospital or a place of isolation. This is not going to be you. This is people you know that Mars may have a bead on. Mars may be indicating the type of person. Of course, it's in Venus's sign as well. So those people can be connected to childhood friends, neighbors, or siblings, for example. Mars, because that's where Venus is sitting at the time of this energy. But on the other hand, one thing to consider is that Mars and Uranus here can make a sudden abrupt change regarding foreign shores, foreign lands, and foreign places. And also the way you generate revenue from those foreign shores, foreign lands, and foreign places, if that's a part of your life story. Also, the energy of the flow to Neptune in your 10th house allows for shocking 12th house changes to bring flowing positive developments into your career and reputation space. Your 10th house is where you are being masterfully Saturnian, wise, and you're grinding and you're working hard and you may be tired. And yet, Neptune, Saturn, say, make your dreams real. Get those visions to have tangible manifestation and structure in your life for your career. And as Neptune is rolling backwards and he's letting you see what's on the shore after the wave recedes, you're going to see what's left to pick up. What is it that you can actually use from Neptune, who rules videography, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, who rules filmography, video, screenplay, storytelling. Neptune rules photography and Hollywood. These energies are up there. Now, Neptune is also a god of enlightenment, and he's flowing to the Mars-Uranus conjunction. And with your reputation being involved, this could indicate a new direction in the next 10 years, 2 years, in which people begin to see you as somehow Saturn sage-like, Neptune enlightened, in the way you display yourself in the public. Mars, as the initiator of this event, with the planet Uranus, is the owner/ruler of your Scorpio house across the way, and of course of your 11th house as well. But the idea here is that with the moon in her detriment, in her fall, in Scorpio, in your 6th house, it could indicate some significant changes regarding your work and work matters, rental and tenancy situations, pets, and yes, health matters as well. However, this is not you in a hospital. I can pretty well guarantee you that. And finally, I do want to mention, wedged between two malefics in the middle of this is your 11th house. Possibly there will be some pressure from this sudden shifting energies and the Neptune involvement and Saturn on the other side regarding hardship and difficulties with friends. You may have a situation come up in the next couple of years where there is a wounding Chiron and inflammation North Node with a friend or friendship group or circle, all right, that kind of thing. And you may lose a friend or quit a friendship circles en masse for some reason. I am Gemini progressed sun, so I can see that possibility for some of this to be true in my own life. I just had COVID and I swear my brain turned to charcoal for 104 fever for 3 days. And I think I got enlightened because it burned out whatever part of my brain was unenlightened. And I'm not kidding you. I've been in a state of causeless joy and effortless peace for a couple of weeks now. Let's knock on wood that it lasts. All right. Moving on. Cancer, sun, moon, and rising sign. Well, first of all, you might consider that this is a story that's not about you. So take a deep breath. Then, the 11th house are other people, often colleagues in your workspace, sometimes your elder sibling, one above you, things to do with friends and groups of belonging and social networks, your close, intimate friends that you would consider like, forever friends, maybe seventh house or even third house childhood friends. But the seventh house, 11th house friends are like the acquaintances, the social networks, the groups you belong to, colleagues and stuff like that, allies and benefactors. So with the Uranus conjunction here on Algol, one of them may lose their head. It may not be you. An elder sibling, one above you, could lose their head, whatever that means. Go crazy, lose their head, lose their shit, basically. And also, you could consider that some of your friends in your larger groups of belonging and in social circles may lose their head. This is a house of your career gains directly, like the second house from the 10th house, the money you make from the 10th. And with the 10th wedged between the malefics of Mars and Saturn, there's an indication this is a challenging place for you, perhaps over the course of the next couple of years. And therefore, you're kind of like, oh, shoot, my career feels heavy right now. I'm wounded up here still. I haven't healed it. You do have a chance to heal that. Watch my moon video on the Cancer new moon that rolls over the next 6 months of influence. Because this conjunction is ruled by Mars, and Mars is the owner of your 5th house, I'm looking at some challenging situations with your children, particularly with the moon in the place of its fall in the house of nurturance and children. There can be a falling out or disagreement or discord of great magnitude with one of your children. At the same time, with a sextile or a romantic sexual love relationship. At the same time, Saturn and Neptune, especially Neptune, Mars will come into on the 20th of July or so, a flow to that Neptune, so it's embedded within this time frame. You may find that the whole energetic archetype of this breakthrough change, I might call the video breakthrough change and exhilarating decisions, but because I don't want to scare people. But this breakthrough change energy that's happening with Mars and Uranus in your 11th house is actually trying to work with the tide pulling back and letting you know what's real and true in your 9th house of foreign countries, foreign shores, visas, court and legal matters, book publishing, but more importantly, your spiritual faith, your spiritual idealism or ideals or ideology, or the way that you perceive your dharma. What is the true path? Because with that chironic wound in the 10th house, a lot of you are just still wondering, why I'm on the planet Earth? What am I here for? What's the meaning of my life? A lot of Cancers have that question going on, especially rising. And so there's a pulling back of the tide with Neptune and looking at what's left on the shore of meaning. What's on the shore of meaning? How do you have a meaningful life? What is your purpose that's in alignment with your gifts and skills? And so because you're having a kind of decisive change and breakthrough change in the way you earn money from your visible reputation, you may be simply saying, in the next 2 years, I'm looking for meaningful purpose that is satisfying in my career and financial matters. Look as well, of course, to what happened in 2021 in the month of January 20th and August 1st of 22, and add 2 years to the next event, as I said in the intro, because that'll help you understand in general how this has been playing out in your 11th house. With a caveat, you do not have the energy here of Algol. I remember that my Cancer rising sister, when I'm being her one sister older, and I had a pretty intense window of time. I can't remember when it was, though. Was it 2021? No, it was 2020. So it didn't involve that. So yeah, who knows? Who knows? I have to really think about, from her perspective and an elder sibling, what that could have been about. In 2022, I hired her. She's my assistant for my back end stuff. And that's part of what happened in August of 22, that her elder sibling changed the direction of earnings for her. There's an example. This time I might fire her. All right, moving on. All right. Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign. The Uranus conjunction to Mars is a big deal because of Algol, off with their heads, shocking or surprising, catalytic, difficult energy in your career space. Well, certainly this can look like a decision or action that you might take or maybe taken on your behalf to change your work, to exit or leave or quit. These are Mars words, sever, some career direction with a surprising, shocking element to it. Now, because it may not be you, it could be the boss. The boss may step down, the boss may be fired, somebody in your company may leave, quit, walk away, Mars, Uranus, shockingly. And this doesn't necessarily cause you any problems at all. You might be like, yeah, that's interesting. If your Leo sun and sun, moon, and rising is between, 24 to 28-ish of Leo, you're also in the crosshairs, not only of the conjunction, but, the immersion of Mars and Uranus with Algol. So those of you who are Leo, sun, moon, and rising, 24 to 28 degrees, this is a very intense event in the sky. Now, you had it before, and I hope you listened to the intro, but go back, I always repeat it, to 2021, January 20th, and go back to 2022, August the 1st. And from those moments onward, and in the months that followed, up to 2 years, there were changes in your career space that were quite notable, right? And I know a Leo who got an amazing job in the film industry during some of these transitions. So what have you been doing that's surprising, shocking and shocking you in your career? Because you have an opposition from a fallen moon in Scorpio, there is some kind of difficulty with your mother, your home life, your childhood stories that are being dredged up from this opposition. Mars does rule the Scorpio house, for example, and there's a possibility, because the fourth house is the house of the mother with the moon, who is the mother, for Leo, sun, moon, and risings who have a mother who's alive, that this can look like a catalytic event involving your mother that is difficult, a confrontation, a shift, a mother story going on near the event or after the event. Opposite the moon, opposite mother energies. Not your mother necessarily, just archetypal mother, because your moon is somewhere else in your chart. Energy around your home, your nest, destabilization of your home and nest is up for grabs, not only around July 15th, but over the next couple of years. That has been true for every one of these conjunctions in the past, right? 2021, 2022. So where is this a shakeup going on? Technically, don't forget the degrees are different. It was, 6-degree Taurus on the first one, 13-degree Taurus on the next one, and now it's the late degrees of Taurus. So all Tauruses are getting all Leos are getting a different time frame in which this can catapult you out of your nest, change your home, challenges in the home. Okay, keep that up your sleeve or in mind. Because also the flow to Neptune happens from the Mars-Uranus conjunction, especially as Mars presses forward, you're going to notice there's an energy of wanting to reveal from a Neptune retrograde what's on the shore after the tide pulls back, after the wave recedes, what is left there that had given you a kind of a confusion or uncertainty around eighth house matters. Eighth house matters are often betrayal, infidelities, toxic stories like that, incest, but also things to do with chunky money, and money you share with your spouse, money that you share with the bank. And so confusion or uncertainty or illusions and delusions there are now being clarified, and you're being more realistic with Saturn. And as Mars is pulling back, as the tide is pulling back with Neptune and Mars is conjoining Neptune, in the aftermath of the conjunction, career money stories in particular, career and tax stories in particular, career and investment stories in your long-range savings and retirement monies even are on the menu of your attention, okay, particularly in the next 2 years. I do also would want to mention, you've got that Aries / Mars ruled house wedged between malefics, kind of the house is besieged between malefics. And it's going to indicate that ninth house matters are definitely a struggle. And you do have a chironic wound there. And you're struggling to find a deeper connection to a father figure, which also that Mars-Uranus conjunction can be also about mother and father figures for you guys. And or you're trying to figure out something to do that's difficult regarding legal matters, visas, travel, or matters to do with book publishing or the meaning of life and your spiritual faith. And that's kind of also kind of baking in a kind of engagement. I just think that embedment, Besieged by the malefics, wedged in the middle is that ninth house. And it doesn't feel like that's going to be your happiest spot, but because there'll be challenges there, but it could be your growth edge because that's where the eclipses are. Some Leos need to find their way on a spiritual path. Some Leos need to get a book published. Some Leos need to go travel to a foreign country or move. Some Leos need to square away their father figure issues. All right, Virgo, sun, moon, and rising sign. I think I need an apple. I don't have any chocolate with me. Virgo, sun, moon, and rising sign. What I say here is that you have a flow relationship to this. That's the good news. It's called an Earth trine. Yeah, this conjunction is in the sign of Earth flowing to you in Earth, right? So that's number one, yay. Don't forget, this has happened before. It happened back in January of 2021. That was at 6 degrees of Taurus, impacting the 6-degree sun, moon, and rising Virgos, and near that degree more actively. The one that happened later on at 13 degrees of Taurus will impact the middle, the middle decan people, the 10 to 19 degree Taurus people back in the day, August of 2021. And this one, of course, will impact most of you Virgos in the let's just go last 10 degrees. The closer you are to 26 degrees of Virgo, sun, moon, and rising, the more radically life-changing this last in a lifetime event is. Last in a lifetime. You know what? That's what I'm going to call the video, last in a lifetime. Let me write that down because it is the last in a lifetime for most of us. So this last in a lifetime synodic cycle is going to radically reform and change all of those of you who are in a positive way that you're going to realize is good for you. All of you Virgos in that last, let's say 5 degrees at least of the sign of Virgo. I'd give you the 24 to 29 degrees Virgos. Wow. Your ascendant, moon, or rising. What a change. I need to get to my chiropractor when I get back home. I think that the energy here is going to have you step up to make radical decisions and changes when it comes to ninth house matters, which include foreign lands. Mars is a mover shaker, moving to another country, traveling extensively to foreign lands, having a revolutionary shift of consciousness around spirituality, God, and the meaning of life. I surrender to God, that kind of thing. Letting God, letting go, let go, let God. You may have some revelations, insights, and shifts that are dramatic regarding father figures. Father figures could be 9th and 10th house. You may have radical changes of direction regarding higher education, or radical shifts when it comes to understanding your life's philosophy and the ideology and meaning of life, etc. With Mars opposite a moon that's fallen in the 3rd house, there is some potential stress points regarding your neighbor's neighborhood, things to do with your childhood friends that no longer fit you, maybe departing from them, things to do with challenges with a younger sibling, should you have one, etc. over the next couple of years. I do feel that with the energy of the sextile to Neptune in your 7th house as Neptune retrogrades and pulls back the tide, the wave is receding, your confusion and delusions are pulling away from things to do with long-term committed significant love stories, especially because Neptune here can represent mental health and addictions. Does your partner have any of those conditions, and are you worried? Now you can see the truth, you're pulling back the lens, but also our partners are mirrors for us. And we may have to look at our own self-sabotage addictions and bad habits because they're just simply being mirrored back at us by our partner, our shadow work. The other thing with Neptune pulling back here is that if there's a relationship that you have been debating about, is it the right one for me? It seems like a lot of Mars's and Uranus's action plan with the rollback of the tide that Neptune provides is to look squarely and realistically at what can make this relationship enduring, but also connecting to a spiritual alignment, a more noble way of being connected, or on a practical note, moving this relationship to another place, another country, or another neighborhood. Because the moon can represent a nest or a home, and the 3rd house is neighborhoods. You have your 8th house wedged between the malefics of Mars and Saturn at this conjunction, indicating a potential shift there to do with resources from inheritances over the next 2 years. And with Mars Uranus in a father figure house, a potential inheritance from a father figure may emerge, as Chiron is also squaring the sun in this chart. So you may be looking at some kind of more financial resources through inheritances or money coming from your spouse, perhaps, or bank loans and mortgages looking like more difficult, but also increasing with the North Node. The only thing I can say about it that makes sense to me, Neptune is opposite the house of legacy wealth, is that, well, we may be liking the increase of our chunky money, which can include inheritances. We don't always like the means by which those chunks of money arrive. And so it's a mixed bag. And again, if you're sharing resources with a spouse-like character, that can feel challenging. If you make money by sharing income or revenue with others, like, oh, what kind of good example would it be? You know, an investment in a stock market and stuff. That's not the happiest area. There's a wound there. It's besieged between malefics. It can be complicated areas in terms of shared resources with other entities, banks, mortgages, and other people, your spouse or business partner. But Uranus, ultimately with Mars up there, is aiming for some radical reinvention of self in a positive way through the idea of tuning into the house of God, which is really a more spiritual focus of life. Libra, sun, moon, and rising. The sun is starting to really heat up here. Let's see if I can move my laptop a little bit forward out of the light of a window. And let's get going before I lose my charge to my laptop as well. It looks to me like what you're having going here, Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign, of course, is a conjunction that you've experienced already in this last of a lifetime conjunction. Your first in a lifetime would have been back for many of us. Were you born in were you alive in the late 30s and early 40s, and you were already here for it? But watch the intro to understand that. Okay, so go back to January 20th, 2021, August the 1st, 2022, not just those days, weeks around that and later, and for 2 years after, because this is continually shaking up your 8th house of the money you share with your partner, sexual betrayal, secrets, and infidelities, things to do, Libra, with your investments, your banks, your loans, your mortgages, your taxes. This has all been radically shaken up. You want to make changes, go in new directions, and have breakthrough change in this area. But watch out for Algol this time. Watch out for that energy. I do know, like, for instance, a Libra who got in a sex scandal. You know, he was like, what do you call it? Like bad vibe with a fake story that he had caused harm to another person, which he hadn't, a female. So this kind of weird stuff comes out, betrayals and abandonment and shame. And, okay, that's been hitting you, right, a little bit since 2021. And now we get this last version with Algol off with their head. So be very careful. You do not go into any radical decisions around banks, loans, mortgages, tax structures, investment opportunities in the markets, or radical decisions around money that you share with another person. So just be careful here, because Algol off with their head, the corpse energy, the beheaded Medusa doesn't bode well for that. It could look like a misstep if you're not careful. You're physically out of harm's way here. This can't harm your ascendant, so just relax. But I'm just sort of saying it's more like a monetary or sexual secrets kind of vibe and some kind of real intensity there. What I would also note is that Mars is opposite with Uranus, the moon in Scorpio. This is going to indicate a fallen moon in your possessions and savings and earnings and that kind of thing. So you got to be really careful on the money axis, not just around July 15th, my dears, but also in the months and even 2 years that follow. I've noticed, I should have said at the beginning, that a lot of the action shows up within the first few months afterwards, where you know what this is truly about. Now, also, you can notice here that the Neptune tide is rolling back. He's retrograde in your 6th house of work and work situations, pets and rental situations. And Saturn is here and rules the house of home and property. So there's some clarity and discernment and sagacity and realism about pets, rental opportunities, work situations, and health matters. It's very illuminating, for you, and Mars is contributing in a positive, decisive way. So regarding money and rentals, money and pets, for example, and money and work situations, there's a lot going on that gives you a higher level of discernment. Saturn is discernment, and Neptune is clarity as the fog of illusion and confusion roll backward. Your marriage house or significant long-term love house or business partnership house or client audience marketplace house is the seventh house. It is besieged between two malefics in this chart, and that kind of bakes in an energy where, especially because Mars owns your seventh house, where you're going to find there are significant challenges in long-term committed love stories. But you're trying to heal a wound there, so we know eclipses keep trying to help you with that. And you just might find that there's a lot of your attention, North Node, that focuses on someone else, a business partner, a client, a significant love partner. And this can feel just more difficult than normal. It doesn't have to be whole 2 years of that. I'd say it's more likely to impact you in the few months that follow this conjunction. And we shall continue. Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising sign. The conjunction is occurring again, just like last in a lifetime, just like it did happen to occur for you back in the day. When was back in the day? It was January 20th of 21, August 1st of 2022. In the months that followed, you likely saw evidence of some shocking, disturbing, unexpected changes in your significant long-term love story by your partner, right? Because they are the Uranus and they are the Mars. So go back and go, what was my partner doing in, the 21 January 2021, add a few months. So my son's a Scorpio rising. I think that his partner took a sabbatical from the relationship and traveled Europe, for example, right? Because her mom had passed away. That seems like what I'm remembering. And then the 2022 story was my son proposing to get married to her, and they're getting married this July. So those stories are about the relational axis. What was going on for you, Scorpio rising, other rising people, sun and moon? Don't forget, I delineated the beginning, sun, career and purpose, moon, home and safety and body, but the rising is everything, especially for your rising, is specifically about those significant long-term love stories. Now, this is Algol, and off with their head and losing one's head. And in this case, your business partner, client, marketplace, audience, and or significant other may lose their head, lose their mind, lose their shit, basically. So be careful around July 15th. Be really careful, 2 days after, 2 or 3 days before and a few days after, regarding that relationship being in challenging mode because of a moon fallen in the house of you, your partner carrying a sword, a knife, and a uncontrollable, shocking behavior with Algol. You want to duck. This can be a really intense time for your relationship. All right. I hope not too bad for my son, because how the pre-wedding jitters get people, the pre-ceremony jitters. So watch for that. Technically, this is also letting the tide roll back. The tide is rolling back on sexual illusion, delusion, confusion, romantic love, confusion, illusion, delusion, procreativity, fertility, parenting, children, illusion, confusion, and delusion, and also creative, entrepreneurial, muse-inspired actions and projects. And you're seeing what's real, what's tangible, what's lasting, Saturn, and you're having an experience of your foggy illusions being revealed, rolling back so you can see what's real, right? What's true. So that's going on for you as well. And that's not just about the 15th, 16th. It kind of bakes in that energy of what the next couple of years may be about. But it is a pretty tight sextile. And so therefore, I think you're going to really see Neptune playing a role. And on a positive note, shocking, surprising, exciting. Uranus, seventh house, marketplace, audience, and other. Fifth house, your novel, your poem, your song, your painting could hit some kind of Neptune, online world, videography, music, and Uranus, internet, success story in the next 2 years or in the few months after this conjunction. We'll see, right? I gave you all the dates to look at the cycle in the beginning. Go back and listen. Hey, Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising sign. What looks like it's happening here, I'm losing my mind, is this cycle last in a lifetime. Uranus co-joined with Mars in your sixth house is going to radically change things to do with jobs, work, karmic debt, real life monetary debts, pets, rental situations, health matters. Now, You've been dealing up this energy before. You got to go back and look at what was going on, January 20th of 2021, August the 1st of 2022, around that time, add 1 or 2 or 3 months for you to get the lay of the land. What were the upsets, changes, and surprises in that sixth house? And perhaps, new pet came in. My Sag Sun ex-husband got a new pet, I think, in 2021. Who I just spent time with in Portugal, and his beautiful wife. And oh my God, their dog Shona is beautiful and such a beautiful animal. But so there's a shocking surprise. I'm getting an animal. That's an example, right? What else could it mean for you? It could mean major changes in your work and career space, sudden elimination or changes in debt structures, changes with rental property situations. Now, look, this is also on Algol, and the other times it wasn't on Algol. And Algol is that very off with our head, shocking, unfortunately difficult demon star in quotes. So be careful with your pets. I'm not gonna scare you, but if you have an animal, don't let it off leash running wild around the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th of July. Just don't, because it can see accidents with pets. All right, or cat. Don't let your cat out of the house. Your sixth house is the work environment where your colleagues and coworker space exists, should you have that in your life. Well, be careful. Obviously, the boss could lose their head. You could lose their head. A colleague could lose their head. Somebody's going to go off the rails here. But shocking, surprising changes in that arena of your life over the next 2 years as well, perhaps. So did any of that happen already? My Sag Sun ex-husband surprisingly retired and quit his job during some of these transits. What are you going to do? Now, there is a sense of a moon at the time of the conjunction in her fall opposite this event. You may have some debilities or difficulties, therefore, in your 12th house emerging. This can do with entities from far off foreign shores, money matters from far off foreign shores from where you currently reside, things to do with difficulty with somebody in a hospital or a mental health setting, a moon figure, a mother in a hospital, hopefully not prison, mother figures. Doesn't have to be your mother. It could be your partner's mother, for goodness sakes, but somebody's mother may be having some health challenges that require hospitalization, mental health hospitalization or isolation coming in the next few weeks or months after the conjunction, or in the couple of years after. And the rolling back of your confusion and illusion and delusions as the tide rolls out and it comes out, the tide pulls back and you see what seashells and rotting corpses are on the beach of your home. Because here you've had some foggy illusions and delusions on the word home. Now you've been having this on and off since 2011, right? That's where Neptune's been. Nothing new. But most recently, this is happening in the later degrees of the sign of Cancer. So Sag, Sun, Moon, and Rising between 20 and 29 Cancer really have been under a lot of foggy illusion and delusion in the last 3 years. Regarding what they're supposed to be doing in and from their home, like the dream home, the soulmate home, whatever, but it's not really that. Saturn is giving you a shocking dose of realism here ever since last March. And also, you could be, by being realistic, also being successful. This can look like sudden, shocking revelations that you need to work from home, or that you need to change your home, or rent out your home, or rent a new home in the months and weeks that follow. And Saturn here can make you feel alone in the home, lonely in the home, isolated in the home, or an elder living in the home is heavy for you. And Neptune is helping roll back something, and Mars is making changes. For example, an aging elder in the home may need to go to an institutional setting. That Mars would say that in the sixth house, for example. We need to find staff to help the aging elder in my home. That's very true for some of you Sagittarius, should you have such an aging elder storyline. There is this sense of besiegement where your fifth house, which is Mars's house, is wedged between the malefics at this conjunction. And this indicates your fifth house may be a challenging place for you. That is your children, your sexuality, and your romantic love stories, your creativity, your procreativity, your fertility, your inspiration, fun, and enthusiasm. These have been wounded since 2019 and continue to be looking for healing. And this kind of malefic enclosure may indicate a kind of time in the months that follow this conjunction, and hopefully not the whole 2 years until 2026, where fifth house matters are difficult. especially as the eclipses continue to agitate this part of your chart through to January of 2025. And if you have had wounds with your children, grown or not, this is going to also indicate there's still struggles there and needs to overcome some challenges with children in your life, yours or the ones you parent, perhaps, or your, spouse's children, for example. Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising sign. Well, here we have that Algol demon star, first in a lifetime for the demon star, conjunction between Mars and Uranus in your fifth house of romantic, sexual love, children, fertility, art, creativity, entrepreneurial endeavors. First of all, Uranus can bring pineal gland insights and downloads, and Mars can have you take action on them. So if you're somebody who's a creative artist type, you may have some great inspiration. But Algol is an unqualified malefic demon star, and that is difficulty regarding someone losing their head. Well, I don't think anyone's going to be decapitated in your life, but your romantic love partner and or your children, adult or otherwise, children can lose their head. They'll lose their shit, basically. When? Maybe around the 15th of July, 3 days before, 5 days after, or in the months that follow this conjunction. Difficult, radical, surprising, shocking things with that child or those children. Your fifth house can be about money luck, and certainly Algol is a wealth star. So I have to give you the positive meaning of this. You may win the lottery. Shock, surprise, you've won some money, especially with Venus in the 8th house. So that's the upside for you guys. It could be a wonderful opportunity for financial success in the house of good fortune, in the house of gambling and speculation. And it could be a stock that takes off because Venus is in the house of investments. Also, this energy could be a real eureka around a creative idea or an entrepreneurial opportunity, but with financial goodness, Algol, but also there may be some kind of intensity around it that requires a radical change of direction or decision making. Because you have an opposition to the moon in the 11th, there may be some difficulty with a sibling, particularly elder, connected to this event, or some difficulty with your friends and social networks and groups of belonging embedded within the shocking, disturbing energies of your fifth house. We would also note that there is the rolling back of a tide of illusion or confusion in the house of children. Third house of neighbors, neighborhood, younger siblings, siblings in general. The rolling back of a tide of illusion, confusion in the third house around skills-based learning, teaching, and educating, or things to do with travel, and also the word commuting, or going back and forth in short distance trips. And this has been very much, you've had a dreamy rose-colored glasses on this part of the story, and now you're getting sober-minded because of Saturn and the tide is pulling back, and you're going to be more realistic about it. And the other thing about it is that as this is happening in your third house, which also involves writing projects, and maybe you're more realistic about a writing project that's creative, right? You also notice that the malefic Saturn and Mars are wedging in your fourth house. So a whole house is enclosed by two malefic planets. That can indicate in the months after this conjunction, which I hope you guys watched the beginning, right? It's July 15th. And even 2 years, up to 2 years, there is a lot of challenge for you, a lot of a feeling of hardship or difficulty or strain or stress regarding matters to do with home. You already have that chironic wound about where's my home since 2019. It can indicate that there's going to be this intensity around the question of where should I live, where's my home, homeland, property, real estate matters are focal for you. That can include matters to do with foreign shores and foreign lands, Rahu's here, also matters to do with legacy wealth and inheritance monies also. And that's going to be an area of challenge or difficulty in general in the wake of this conjunction. Just keep that in mind. I need water. Hang on, I just had my water. Where did I put it? Okay, pausing the recording so Lori can drink some water. Oh no. I don't have much battery left on my phone. Stay there. I'm going to grab the water. Oh, water. Keeping on, keeping on. All right, Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and oops, I have to move the screen. All right, I'm one of you. I'm Aquarius rising, Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and rising. Let's talk about it. Well, first of all, let's not forget we're all Pluto right now. We're facing death squarely. Die before you die. Time to get enlightened, or just look at death squarely. Unfortunately, it does mean real death of people you know. It doesn't really necessarily mean you're going to die. I know a lot of Aquarians are afraid of that. Don't worry about it. Ask how many Capricorns you know live through this and they're still standing to talk about it. But that aside, I do know many Capricorns experience many deaths in their lives as Pluto went through the Capricorn zone from 2008 and is pretty well done except for this September, October, November. Therefore, I will honor the meaning of Pluto as the Lord of the underworld, the god of Hades, and the god of death as being very literal. That said, let's go to this last in a lifetime conjunction. Fixed star, Algol, is about off with your head, decapitation, unexpected stories that are shocking. Uranus, Mars change. Unexpected, shocking change of circumstances to do with homeland, property, and real estate. I would be remiss if I didn't mention this is also a wealth star. And so you could have wealth in connection to matters to do with home, property, land, and real estate, or legacy wealth and inheritances showing up in your story in the months and weeks that follow this conjunction, or over the 2 years. With Jupiter in your fifth house, in the house of good fortune and a house of money luck, there is indeed the opening salvo here from Jupiter, as he's still direct, to bring you money luck in the next few months. So how this money luck should show up, I don't know. I'll tell you, I'm involved in a hospital lottery in Vancouver. It's called the Heroes Home Lottery that draws sometime in July. You know, I could win a home lottery, right? But I don't have to take the home. I can take the money. That's just an example, right? I don't know. It'd be really nice if I do win it. I can play this video back as one of my clips. But, you know, changes, unexpected new directions to do with home. And the sun is in the house of rental. So there we have this story, maybe new rental properties. My landlord's in Switzerland. Maybe she wants to sell the home that I'm currently renting. And what about the idea of unexpected, shocking events to do with childhood, to do with childhood memories, to do with mother and mother figures in your life? Now, Algol here is different than the other times this happened. Don't forget, this occurred back in, I gave my example in the intro. I'm not going to do my examples again, but this happened January 20th, 2021, August the 1st, 2022. This is nothing new. And I told you how I had shocking changes of home in both of those experiences, but I also told you how it turned out well for me anyway. And it turned out to be better than I expected. Therefore, don't be afraid of the change and unexpected change regarding homeland, property, and real estate that can occur for us Aquarians in the weeks, months, or even 2 years that follow this conjunction. Usually, as I mentioned in the beginning, I've noted you see what's going to happen at minimum within 4 to 6 months of the conjunction. The tide is, because we have a moon in her detriment, called her fall in Scorpio. Well, there's a shocking change in the home, homeland, real estate, and what you do in and from your home. This could indicate also there's going to be some changes in the career that look like you're falling in the moon, right? What you consider to, well, a couple thoughts. It could mean a change of home and career. Moon represents home, but it can also represent changes in your status or your popularity in your career. Now, I'd be really awful, but that'd be something like being demonetized on YouTube for me or something like that, or deplatformed. I better be careful. For you guys, also consider that. You could think about the Saturn narrative, where you've had these kind of rose-colored glasses about your finances and possessions, including the car you possess, the home you possess, the resources you possess, the earnings you possess. You've been rose-coloring the story as Neptune has been direct motion. Of course, it's 2011. But like in the few months before, the retrograde just started on July 2nd. Go listen to the video. Now the tide's pulling back with the help of Saturn, the realist himself, structures that are enduring and lasting and realistic viewpoints around your career. For me, the Saturn-Neptune thing, Saturn got me to incorporate and save a hell of a lot of tax money just this year. So Saturn's an ally for us Aquarians. It's not to restrain or constrain or constrict our savings and money stories, but to help structure and solidify them. And Neptune is now anything that was like kind of like a foggy, dreamy, hopeful, optimistic, unrealistic delusion around money. You're seeing what's left on the shore as the tide and the waves recede that can be useful to you, that can be realistically okay, but connected to radical, sudden, shocking change in their home, nest, real estate, and a property environment. What may that look like? I'm not sure. The third house is wedged between malefics. Because that's kind of stamping into the conjunction, there may be something about difficulties with younger sibling that is connected to July the 15th, a little before and after, and or the months and even 2 years that follow. Because of Chiron, the wounded energy here, that could be a wounded sibling, or something to do with a wounded in the neighbors and neighborhood relationships, or your everyday daily life, or things to do, go to the store, go to the workout room, or some challenges and difficulties on short distance, long travel opportunities, skills-based teaching and learning. Now, I teach online, and my type of teaching is really third house teaching, and that's going to be like a besieged energy for me. I may not teach much more. Maybe I'll change it. This is also an area, though, that has to do with your website, social media world, and all of that. And so that too can feel like an area of hardship. The North Node eclipses here are definitely highlighting this part of our chart, Aquarians. But also reminding you, cousins, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, siblings, especially younger, belong to the third house. And this besiegement may be their difficulties, not yours. Okay, just keep that in mind, but you're able to be aware of it. Shall we continue with the Pisces sun, moon, and rising? All right, Pisces, a last in a lifetime conjunction between Mars and Uranus is occurring for you in your real estate of your third house, which involves short distance travel, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, and neighborhood, moving vehicles, cars, trains, planes, and automobiles, commuting, everyday life that you go about your day, things to do with writing projects, social media, and online world. Now, this is an area where you've been having radical ups and downs and changes, apparently, according to Mars Uranus, since the first conjunction in January 21st of 2021, and second conjunction of a lifetime, August the 1st of 2022. So you might want to go back to those timeframes and the weeks and months that followed and see what kind of destabilizing changes were happening. This is more intense because of Algol, the demon star, and yet it does flow to your Pisces native energies, like your Pisces sun and moon and rising, anywhere between 24 and 28 degrees of Pisces for sure is in the crosshairs of the Algol conjunction, but it's also flowing to you. And therefore you receive it with a positive energy. And Venus is the nature of a sextile. She's the nature of love and money. It's possible an aunt, uncle, niece, cousin, sibling is going to have a financial Algol success story, and that will benefit you in some way. A shocking, surprising success story for a sibling could be to your benefit, or a neighbor, or a aunt, uncle, cousin, niece, nephew, the kinship group that could live around you in the ancient world. And because you also have the opposition to the Scorpio fallen moon at the time of the conjunction in the ninth house, there's also an indication that you may have some difficult circumstances arising, probably closer and more proximate to the July 15th timeframe with ninth house people. Judges, courts, legal matters, visa, travel plans, travel situations, foreign land situations, women or mother figures in foreign lands, third marriages. Ninth house is third marriages, second house is second marriages, first house is seventh house marriages, first house marriages is seventh house. You could have something going on up in the top of the house with a disappointment or challenge in a book publishing project, or with something to do with your spiritual philosophy and beliefs, or academic and university problems as well. But that aside, you also might notice that you have a Neptune sextile here in the house of you. Now, where have you been wearing those rose-colored glasses, been kind of willing to drink your own Kool-Aid, like delude yourself that you got this and you see the way it's supposed to be and you got these visions and everything is going to be beautiful and wonderful and there are rainbows and unicorns everywhere. And then on July 2nd, the tide pulls back as Neptune will, over the next few months until December, be retrograding. And this embeds a kind of realism with Saturn there, discernment, sagacity, and coming to sober-minded recognitions of what's true and real and what's illusory in anything in your life regarding your partner, your home, your career, because it's a lens by which you are seeing the entirety in your children of the sphere of your chart. Neptune is pulling back and can help you overcome mental health challenges, heavy oppression and depression and anxiety that Saturn can represent. With Neptune here, you may pull back on an addiction or self-undoing strategy, especially substance addictions as well. Now, Neptune pulling back here and Mars, moving forward with Uranus and Algol in the third house can indicate a more realistic look at how you wish to take action and make decisions regarding your neighborhood, neighbors, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc., all those third house people, right? Or a more realistic view of how you want to do your social media or online stuff as well, virtual neighbors and neighborhoods. You have your second house, it's ruled by Mars, wedged between malefic Mars and Saturn, giving a kind of flavor, perhaps in the months, if not 2 years that follow this conjunction. It ends in 2026, July 4th, kind of making your second house of money a little bit more difficult than you may like. Yes, you have a North Node here trying to expand your focus and strive for more financial savings and resources and assets and possessions. But on the other hand, you also have the chironic wound here as well. And therefore still, right, since 2019 on the money front. So still this could indicate there's some challenges over the next year or so in the money, earnings, possessions, financial realm of your sky. This is kind of general, right? Because it's just that the house is wedged between the malefic planets. So it's a thought, right? I'm experimenting with it because basically from this conjunction, your second house is the 12th house, which is its own kind of financial loss house and a financial hardship. When it's not generating revenue from international sources, it can be large expenditures, going out and, causing challenges. And finally, the last thing I want to say about this for you guys is that a lot of times it's like the third house is the packing house. I'm going to pack my bags, and the fourth house is now I'm moving in. Okay. It could look like some of you, with Jupiter giving you golden opportunities regarding home, property, land, and real estate through to next June, could have an unexpected, shocking reason or need to move. May be connected to a significant long-term marriage partner because of Juno in the 7th house. And because it is Algol and it's like radical intensity, your move may be and Uranus is surprises. It's definitely unexpected. It's definitely intense. But Mars is also that train, plane, and automobile. We're driving somewhere, we're flying somewhere. So there's some sense that you may have a significant change of neighborhood or a move of some sort. And that might be available for your inspection over the course of the few months that follow this conjunction, right? Go back also and look at how the conjunction impacted you in the same idea of changing your home or neighborhood. So I have a Pisces rising sister who changed her neighborhood as a result of the 2022 conjunction. So what have you guys been doing with neighbors, neighborhood, and maybe changes of residence in that regard? And anything else I'd say? Well, having Jupiter in your 4th house and, generally Mercury, Venus in your 6th house can also help you with new neighborhood changes regarding rental properties. So some of you may get a unexpected, exciting new opportunity for a rental situation to emerge for you that you didn't expect as a landlord or as a tenant in the course of the months that follow this conjunction. And that's it. I think I'm done. Thank you for listening. I believe I probably am in this room recording for about an hour and a half, if not longer. Don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Check out my 2024 All Signs Bundle summer sale for $33. Get your sign for $14. It's all in the description box below. I'll see you guys in my next video. I don't know what that will be. Probably the Capricorn 29-degree anaretic moon that's happening on the 21st of July. What a humdinger. We also have other things happening, such as Mars moving into the sign of Gemini coming up at the end of July. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. So if you want to know what that means for your sign, please hit that like button, subscribe. Don't want to miss a thing by hitting the notification bell as well. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful summer. And I'm recording on July 4th, crossing my fingers as of 4:57 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, July 4th. Nothing bad happens in the United States. Someone in a chat box today told me there was an FBI warning for major cities regarding terrorist acts possible. Mary, unfortunately, I had a dream of a terrorist attack off the east coast of the United States, where the Chesapeake Bay is, where I used to live, Chesapeake Bay, Washington, Annapolis, Maryland. And no, I'm not an American. And I had that dream, and I said to my partner, I had that dream a couple months ago, and I said, shit, it feels like a retribution for the United States support of the war in the Middle East. And it felt like a missile type weapon being launched from something floating in the water, right? So submarine, or I doubt it's a ship. And so keep that in mind. The dream, it did happen before the bridge collapsed in Baltimore, if I remember correctly, but it wasn't about that, because it was like a flying projectile. And so unfortunately, that dream is still bothering me. And we do have the conjunction of Mars and Uranus on July 15th, which can involve acts of terror. And so to all my beautiful friends in the United States who are 50% of my channel viewership, almost 50%, sending you lots of love. You guys are amazing, big-hearted people. I lived in your country for many years, raising my kids who were born there in Washington, D.C. and New York City. And I think that the United States people are some of the most friendly people in the world. It's not the people, the problem, it's the politicians. All right. Thanks you. Thank you. Thank you.